One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 96 today. And I am here with a very special guest. She's been on shows like The Simpcast. She's been on many other YouTubers' streams before. She's a very well-known YouTube. Please, everybody, welcome the Queen of Bimbo Power, Brittany Venti. How are you doing today, Brittany?
I'm good, bimbo power and such. Thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Even though I was supposed to go on so long ago, but I finally made it.
Oh, it's fine. I understand, you've been busy with stuff, life has gotten in the way, So speaking of that, Brittany, how's your day been? What have you been up to today?
I had some boba earlier because I was really in the mood, and I was doing some laundry, and then I was listening to HRH Collection, and I really appreciate her video today. She was going on about her things she can't live without, but it wasn't like a corporate thing, like how a lot of YouTubers do, like, oh, here's this physical item that I'm influencing you to buy. It was less about that. She did show a couple things like perfume, but it was more about like her being thankful for like her husband, how she met him, and like thankful for things like that. And I thought it was cute. So I just feel like that's the overall energy today, is like very positive. I feel like that set the tone.
I was just seeing, in your Instagram stories that, you were making some very delicious strawberries. That was very cool. That must have been. What type of strawberries were they?
They were milk chocolate and white chocolate, and they were from Sprouts because I have to shop at Sprouts for things like that because of the corn allergy, because it's in everything that includes like all corn byproducts. So no citric acid, no cornstarch, like nothing. So it was very fresh tasting. Like the strawberries were delicious. Like they were perfectly ripe. The chocolate was delicious, high quality. So I really enjoyed that. I would definitely make it again.
That must have been a very great, Valentine's Day. What would you say, is your favorite type of dessert to have, Brittany?
I hate that you asked that question because like I just have the most intrusive thoughts when people ask me serious questions like that. Like immediately my brain was just like, don't say come, don't say come, don't say come. Like just the most intrusive thought possible. Okay, so unironically, my favorite dessert, I don't know, those strawberries were pretty, I would put those at the top of the list. Those were way better than the store-bought ones. I don't know. It's hard to say because I really can't eat much unless it's homemade. So it's pretty limited in terms of what I can eat.
I remember when you were speaking to one of your guests, I think it was whether in the Simpcast or on your show, you have some kind of like allergic reaction when it comes to eating food. What type of allergic reaction is, and what type of food can you not eat?
I get hives if it's corn, but if it's shellfish contamination, specifically shrimp, clams, mussels, those type of things, I don't have the reaction with octopus and squid for some reason yet. My allergies have continued to get worse, so I wouldn't be surprised. But with those, I'll go into shock, and that's really bad because I might have to go to the hospital. With hives, it's more that it's just like aesthetically very annoying and looks gross, and it takes a while for them to go away. So I can't eat anything with corn in it, even if it's a byproduct. And it's in pretty much everything in America. So I can't really eat out that much either. There's very few things I can eat out. Usually fried things are a no-go, especially if there's shrimp at the restaurant. So I've had to learn to cook a lot and make my own stuff and eat relatively healthy because of it, because anything that's junk food typically has corn in it in America. So I don't want to get hives. It's really annoying.
Brittany, have you had any incident in the past where you had to go into hospital where you had an allergic reaction before?
Yeah, but it was over. I had one where I should have went to the hospital, but I didn't because I was at the airport and I didn't want to miss my flight. I was really near passing out because I accidentally ate some citric acid. It was in something that I was not expecting. It was in like, those deli cut meats, the prepackaged ones. Yeah, I didn't know it had citric acid, and I ate a couple pieces on the way to the airport before I got in the Uber. And then I was like, and then I was at the wrong terminal. So I had to walk, like, it was like a 30-minute trip in the other direction of just walking and going on the little train thing. And I thought I wasn't going to make
What
it.
airport
I
was
literally
this?
thought it was over.
What airport was this in?
The Orlando one. It was
Fair
after
enough.
Content House. And that was horrible. I really thought I was going to pass out. I had to go to the bathroom every like 10 minutes. I was like getting lightheaded. It was awful. But
That must have been, yeah, I do remember you and Frank were having a bit of a problem, you know, like where you guys were a bit sick. What do you think it was? Do you think it was something you guys ate, or was it just something you think you caught?
well, that incident was because I ate the meat. There was other incidents. I have other allergies, but I don't like talking about them publicly. I could tell you off air, but I don't like saying it publicly because I'm worried that if people find out what it is, they will purposely try to kill me with it because it's something like very deadly and very common. So I don't want to say what it is. And that was one of the things that was an issue at like Content House. So it's similar to a peanut allergy. I'll say that. You know how you like, if you're near peanut butter, it'll like kill you if you're allergic to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know.
For some reason, people with peanut butter have like the deadliest allergies to it. Like it's never like a light one, right? It's always like if they even breathe near it, they're dead. But it's something like that. So like I can't be near something. And yeah, so the time I was at the hospital for a reaction, it was because of an allergy that was like that. And so my whole face blew up, my throat started closing, and I had to get prednisone because that's the only thing that brings the swelling down. I don't like taking it because it's a steroid and it makes you fat and ugly if you take too much of it. So I really don't like taking it.
Hey, Brittany, someone's got a funny comment here. I think this is called Misty Key. He says, "It's okay, Brittany. I'm allergic to grifters."
Well, you better keep your EpiPen ready on YouTube.
Also, someone also just said, you know, happy birthday to you. Happy late birthday.
Thank you, Spartan.
Spartan 177. And also Outlaw 2 said, you know, makes sense, could be an issue. So, Brittany, tell me about yourself. What made you, you know, tell me about your YouTube journey. Like, how did you start YouTube? And what was your motivation, you know, to start YouTube? And, like, what was the story behind that?
Let's see. So I transitioned from Twitch to YouTube because at the time YouTube did not have live streaming. It was pretty much a monopoly on Twitch. And at the time, it was just when Twitch had started opening up more with their boundaries. So before it was more restricted to gaming, and then they slowly opened up. Back in the day on Twitch, if you were out of game more than 20 minutes, they would literally ban you. Like if you tried to go full screen and like do some commentary, they would just ban you unless you had like special permission, which is like what I saw. For example, I remember back in the day, Pokimane had that. So she got to do Dr. Pokey, and she had no competition because nobody else was allowed to do it. Everyone had to stay in game or you get banned if you're out of game for more than 20 minutes. So it was completely different kind of meta then. And I was streaming GTA and I was streaming World of Warcraft and, you know, doing my little bimbo bit and pretending to be mad and raging at the game and just coming across as an incompetent girl gamer because it's very believable and it's funny. But I did grow up playing video games, which is why I knew what would piss people off. I know how people react in that sort of community. So that's how I started on Twitch. And then I transitioned to YouTube. After I got banned off of Twitch, I went to Hitbox, and then YouTube live streaming came out after that. And then I went and streamed on YouTube from there. And then I started posting videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, what was the drama between you and Pokimane before? Because I heard a bit about that, but, you know, I never got to know much about it. What was that about?
There was an incident that happened where she kind of just was too scared to respond. She blocked me and then proceeded to subtweet me. This is years ago. And then at some point I had made a video on her because I just didn't like her brand. And I thought it was funny because like I didn't like what she was doing because it was very hypocritical. It's like, I'm so modest, ooh woo, but also I'm going to bend over on camera a bunch of times, like right in the camera with transparent shorts, and it'd be different if it's like one-off, to maybe a couple times accidents happen, whatever. But it was over and over to the point where there's compilations of it. And yet there's this image of like, I'm perfect, ooh, cutesy girl, but it's really just like a more subtle version of what OnlyFans girls do. And so I covered that, and I also thought it was just funny with like how phony it was, the image she was projecting out versus how she actually is, and does a lot of mean girl things. For example, the subtweeting thing after she blocks me, right? I can't respond to it. Or like she had an incident where she had some copy striking issues. She tried to get It's a Gundam taken down because she didn't like what he said, going after sponsors, things like that. So that sort of controversy really surrounds her branding. And also she's in with the commies on Twitch. She's very much a streamer who, in my opinion, from what I've observed over the years, because I've been around just as long as she has, and I've watched her go from like a smaller channel to a bigger channel, I think she's one of these people that kind of sleeps her way to the top, just to put it bluntly. Like, she dated celebrities, and that's how she slowly built up her brand further and further. She's always had like special privileges from like Twitch staff, like I mentioned earlier, things like that. So I just thought it was an interesting topic to cover, because there's like, usually with these lolcows, there's an authentic form, and then there's the inauthentic form. The inauthentic form are the lolcows, right? The authentic form is what they're trying to be. There's the people, and then there's people trying to be those people, right? So there are naturally cute streamers that are wholesome, but then there's streamers who are pretending to be that in order to pander, usually to a male audience if you're a female, and pandering to their sexuality, specifically in Pokemon's example. And it's something you see pretty common. It's pretty common. Like, most female most female entertainers, like live streamers, YouTubers, whatever, a lot of them do sleep their way to the top. And that's something I've noticed. And it's surprisingly not discussed that much. Like, I would have thought, considering that there's so much discussion around like women versus men, like the sexual relations and things like that. I'm very surprised like that the red pill community, manosphere, doesn't bring that up a lot with content creators in particular. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Brittany, when you see like the issue with Pokimane, who do you think, like, out of all the female streamers, like from what you've seen, is the worst? Like, who do you think is the worst one that has just gotten away with it so many times and just never seems to get called out?
Never called out? Let me think about that. I don't know. I don't have a list of people I hate. Let me think. Like YouTubers and live streamers like that? I don't know. No one particular person comes to mind. It just tends to be that these people all hang around each other. Like, for example, Pokimane hangs out with Hassan, or like with the Eliza Blue stuff, you see that birds of the same feather tend to flock together, that type of thing. So it tends to be more groups than it does individuals, like sub-communities. So a lot of people on Twitch are pretty, I mean, Twitch kind of, what's the word? They incentivize people to act like commies on Twitch, right? It's incentivized. You get promoted more. You're more in the in-group, things like that. So I don't know. Twitch streamers are generally on my shit list. I'll say that.
Someone just brought up a funny comment here called Turtlehead, the Joe Biden profile. Eliza gave Tim Pool blue boys. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, her last name is really easy to make fun of. It's not a real last name, but her stage name. It's like, you could just say Eliza Blue Shane Cashman, you know, like just BLEW.
Yeah, no worries. That's all good. I get what you mean. But someone brought up a good comment here. This is called C. She's a good friend of mine. I chat to her on C. She says, it's a genre of people who do similar things on Twitch, basically referring to some people on YouTube do that same thing too, you know?
Yeah.
So, Brittany, what would you say out of all your favorite YouTube streams that you've done? What has been your favorite one?
My favorite one, probably one of my older ones where I got to be I had a little more creative freedom. I think one of my favorite streams is the one where I reveal my 23andMe and I reveal that I'm Black, and then I like dress African and like get the African drums going. I thought that was a pretty fun stream. I think it's pretty underrated.
Oh, did you get banned for that, or no? You didn't get banned for that.
No, when I got banned off of Twitch over the African thing, that was over me making mud cookies. They didn't like that I made mud cookies, and then they emailed me, how would you feel if your culture was made fun of like this? So I replied to them with my 23andMe showing that I was Black, and it was an Asian moderator, by the way, that banned me. And then I didn't get a response, and then it made some of the news.
You know, Brittany, when I was looking up your profile picture, you actually, was that true? You grew up without like a father, like your father died at a young age and your mother died at 16. Is that correct?
My dad died a year before my mom, but yeah. So my dad died when I was around 15. My mom died when I was 16.
Oh my God, that's must have been awful that you had to go through that. So when that happened, Brittany, because it's very difficult for a lot of people to get going, like, what would you say was the thing that like kept you going in life, that like was the thing that got you to where you are now, and like kept you going down the path, of just going to the shitness of not like of just doing drugs or doing alcohol or potentially OnlyFans for money, even though it wasn't a thing back then. What would you say was the one thing that kept you going and kept you sane in your whole life? And what was that one quote that really, helped you and motivated you to never give up on life? And what would you say to the people, who lost their, parents at a young age? What would you say to them how to never give up?
Even though OnlyFans wasn't a thing back then, I still did receive porn offers for high amounts of money. It was like something like $80,000 when I was like 18. And I never wanted to do these sort of things because even though maybe when I was younger, maybe I was more liberal in my position on it, I still was never really comfortable with that. I've never really been into porn like that. I haven't really consumed it as an adult. So that wasn't part of my self-concept. For me, what kept me going was a couple of things. One of those things was finding my other half, finding my future husband. And that's always been a motivator since I can remember. Like, I always wanted to find my other half. Even when I was like 5 years old, I was like, that feeling no BF. That was always me. And I always chill out, Petals. They're fighting.
It's all good. Go ahead, keep saying.
And so I always thought by doing anything pornographic, not only is it just not good or good for anybody, in my opinion, overall, I think it's a pretty stressful industry and has long-term effects for both the consumer and the creator. But also the fact that I didn't think that the person I would want that would be 100% loyal to me and faithful to me, not just not cheating, but other things too, wouldn't want somebody that does that, because that's really hypocritical in my opinion. How would I look going and selling my body to random strange men on the internet, selling my intimacy to them, giving a part of me, a part of my love to them in a way? It's not actually love, but it's this shallow version of it. You're giving your intimacy to them for money. I don't think that, not only would I not like that in a significant other, but also I don't think the significant other I want with that sort of devotion would want someone who does that. So that was always a huge motivator for me to not go near things like that. And the second thing that motivated me was honoring my mom, especially as I grew older. As years passed, I feel more and more of the need to honor my mother's sacrifice that she made for me, being a single mother and her really devoting her life to me to make sure that I was okay and I was protected from when she was alive anyway. So I think I would be doing her a disservice to not see it through. And she always told me, like from a young age, hey, it's really important for you to build a family, you know, because I'm an only child. I don't have siblings. I don't have any immediate family. I have my grandma, but we don't live near each other and I don't really see her a lot. I lived with her for a couple of years in my adulthood, but basically for me, it's honoring my mom and seeing it through and taking her message of building a family and getting that unconditional love from children, like my own children in the future. So that's what motivates me.
You know, you've come a long way, Brittany, you know, and the fact you've able to manage to keep so strong, you know, you've grown into a very, very pretty, you know, attractive girl, very smart, very, you know, nice to talk to, you know, very, from what I've seen, you know, a lot of your friends, you know, they say you're very cool, and I think you should never give up, Brittany, and you should always keep going, you know, no matter what.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You know, so Brittany, where did you get the term bimbo power from?
Oh, it started as an in-group joke. So I have this female chat that I've had for like, it's like very private friend chat with my IRL friends. And most of them, we've all hung out. So we've been to the same wedding, things like that. And we've known each other for a while. And they all know each other through me. So we created a friend group that started off really small, of like 6 people. And now it's more like 10 or so people in this female Discord. And one of my friends, who's a really good artist, I have a lot of artist friends, she was basically making this a bit, like the bimbo bit. And this was way before it was trending. We were all bimbo posting and saying like, no more girl bossing, bimbo power, that type of thing. So we just started joking about it. And like, especially the aesthetic of like the blonde hair with the like, it's not like having big boobs, for example. It's like the caricature of like having huge, like unrealistic, like like not even basketball, like a hot air balloon sized boobs with blonde hair, and like being oblivious because you choose to be, because it's the feminine thing to do, and because it's funny, because you're not actually oblivious, but it's funny because the other side of things, the opposite of that, is women who are too busy being worried about other women for no good reason, and they're just constantly seething. So it's like the opposite approach of like being a woman and trying to prove yourself, like I'm as good as men. It's countering that. So we just had it as an in-group joke for a while, and then I started posting about it, and eventually it caught on, became more mainstream. And now I see a lot of people saying that they're bimbos in the past like 2 years. It's been a bit for a while for some years in our friend group. I'm pretty sure my friend was the first one to do it, because I had never seen anybody else like Starbucks post and in that way and all that.
Brittany, I just thought of a funny one, you know, because I'm autistic, you know, like for autistic people, autistic or autist power, you know.
Yeah, that's basically the internet, weaponized autism.
Where did the term weaponized autism come from? Because you know, one of my friends I spoke to, you know, has that on her profile picture.
I think the first time I saw that term was on 4chan during the "He Will Not Divide Us" era, and people locating that flag through the sounds of a train passing by. So that was the first time I had seen that term, weaponized autism, because it actually took a lot of autism to be able to find something through the sound of a train. And it was really funny.
Oh, that must have been absolutely hilarious. So Brittany, what do you think today, in today's world, what do you think is the biggest problem with today's relationships? Because a lot of feminists, you know, will blame it on men. A lot of, you know, in the man, you know, who goes their own way movement will blame it on, you know, women feminists. What do you think is the biggest problem with people in relationships? And what do you think in today's world, where the dating scene, especially in Western countries, is so broken and, you know, so, you know, just going down to an all-time low? What do you think, you know, the family unit needs to do to fix itself? And what do you think people should do when they're trying to get like into a relationship with each other or about to date with each other? What do you think a man needs to do right? And what do you think a woman needs to do right?
So I think that it would be solved, these issues be solved obviously by a stronger foundation, having good parents and being raised the right way. I noticed that there seems to be a correlation between the lack of religion, and that seems to be an influence. I think it's that some people really do need that structure in their life. It's not even just about the spiritual aspect of God being real or not. It's also the stories that are taught and the messages that it teaches people. And I think there's a lack of that. And that comes from both
What would
religion,
you
God,
say?
spirituality,
What
and
would you
parents.
say? Like out of all the Bible stories, what would you say um, does like the best teaching of, or like from any religion? What would you say like does the best story that you've heard that teaches about family and one that every family should listen to and woman and man should listen to?
So I went down a rabbit hole over Catholicism, and that started because people kept mentioning these arguments that didn't seem correct. It didn't make sense. They would say like, well, Catholics aren't legitimate. They would basically illegitimize them because they would pray to saints. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. You wouldn't base an entire religion off of something that's not canon to the Bible. So I went down this rabbit hole, and it's like, oh, okay, actually you can pray to the saints because it's like telling someone else to pray for you, and that's perfectly fine in the Bible, right? So I went down this rabbit hole, and so I did a lot of research on the fallacies against Catholicism, and I've done a lot of research with that. But with that said, I haven't read the Bible. I've heard a lot of things about it on YouTube and through my own research and things like that, that I find interesting, and I'm into spirituality. But to answer the question, I think one of the really nice things that I saw, and this is inspired from my friend's wedding. She's Catholic. Her name's Jessica. And what she did at her wedding was she had her husband wash her feet, and then she washed his feet to show that they're subservient to each other. It's not just this idea that's promoted of, oh, the woman gives everything and then the guy can just be a bastard and do nothing for her. I like the idea of mutual serving, like you're serving each other. I think that's really romantic, and that's really nice. I like that messaging. Generally, it seems like also in my personal interactions with Christians who actually do follow their faith, meaning like obviously everyone sins, but there's obviously figures, especially in conservative media, where they're not following their faith at all, but then they claim to be Catholic or Christian, things like that. But the ones who actually do follow their faith, I find that they tend to be really good people and very generous. And I really like that. So I think that maybe some decades ago, there was more of that influence because there's a sense of community from that as well. And I think that that promoted the welfare of relationships and the family and the home and everything. So I think that that's lacking. I think that if you're dating right now, you have to be very very to the point. That's what I find. You have to be very much like, this is what I want. I want a family in the future. I expect this. Like for me, it's like you cannot watch porn. Absolutely, like not even on the table. I need faithfulness. I need someone who will provide. I need someone who will be emotionally supportive. Like a lot of it's common sense, to be honest. And I don't know why it's not so common anymore, as the boomers say, but I think with dating, you have to be really, really to the point, or else you get lost in these weird gray areas of men who are non-committal, women who are non-committal too. I'm just speaking from my perspective of men being non-committal or like wishy-washy, things like that, where it's a waste of time. I think that people in general need to be cautious about wasting their time, because even for me, I've been dating for like since I was 15, like serial monogamous. Like I've never been one for hookups and things like that. I always wanted to find my husband. Like since the beginning, this is like I came down this earth and I was like, where is he? That's how it feels for me. So even through the 10 years or so, over a decade of dating and being with people for years and years, like even now, it's like it takes that long for some people just to even go in the direction of finding the right person through trial and error, especially if you don't have a good frame of reference, such as myself, where I don't have parents at a young age. And you really have to take that into consideration. Some people get lucky and they'll find their husband at a young age, but even for some people, when you're actively doing it for like 10 years, you may not find that person. So really take into consideration your time when you're dating. That's what I would say.
So, Brittany, lately, what I've noticed is Andrew Tate. Apparently, recently there was something that came out on Twitter where some girl was saying there was. I think I haven't read much about it, but some people were saying that Andrew Tate apparently was accused of being a sex trafficker. What is your opinion to that new evidence, and what is your whole opinion about Andrew Tate? Like, do you think he is guilty, or do you think that people are lying about it to make him look bad?
How new is this information? Because I'm not on Twitter, so.
Oh, it's a new information that just came out. It was someone who said it was like the leaked messages apparently that came out. One of Andrew Tate's ex-wives came out and said that the girls are making it up to label him to make him look bad.
I think that a lot of the situation has disinformation on both sides of it. So a lot of people, and I don't know if it's on purpose, if some people try to push the false information on purpose so that it's easy to debunk and therefore makes them look good. I don't know if that's the case, or if some of them are just stupid. Obviously, some of the criticisms are more like, well, he hurt my feelings. And then the other ones are like, no, he literally used the lover boy method on his website, which I don't think is right. I think he acts very immoral. I don't think it's a good example for men. I don't think that that's how you act if you want to be in a loving, caring, mutually loving relationship. He doesn't really promote having a family unit that's healthy. I mean, he was raised by his apparently his dad was one of those 3-letter government agencies. I don't know if that's true. That's what I hear a lot. But from what I did learn in my research of him, he's in and out of his life, and he's like kind of promoting that. Like, my dad's so cool because whenever my mom would nag him, he would just hop out of my life. It's like, and that's his example, and that's what he wants to promote, is just like non-committal lifestyle. And it's not conducive to a healthy society at all. You're going to get more of a broken society that way. So I don't support the message he's promoting, even if it is in some minor ways. Oh, you go to the gym, therefore masculinity. I don't think that's enough to compensate for a lot of the immoral things he promotes, along with the fact that he said on himself on film that he takes the girls' money, like he steals from them, as in like he tells them, I'll give them this much, and then I lie to them and say, oh, it's taxes, and then I pocket it. He said that on film. I went over that on my stream. He did the Loverboy method on his website, talking about how he, and this is regarded as an actual trafficking method if you look at any anti-trafficking site. I know the Eliza Blue thing makes it harder in that regard in terms of the coercive aspect of trafficking, because now when you hear like I'm a trafficking victim, you kind of roll your eyes because of Eliza Blue. But that actually is a method of trafficking, is coercion. And that is a method of doing it, the Loverboy method, which is to mislead them about the relationship and sleep with them, and then he tries to manipulate them into prostituting themselves on camera for him to profit off of. And that's actively ruining girls' lives. I don't like that at all. I don't think people like that if that were happening to men. I don't think they would be cool with that if a woman was just taking advantage of them, ruining their lives and their prospects for their lives. Like, these women, you think they're going to be in happy marriages now? Probably not. So I mean, there's always hope. Don't get me wrong. Like, Trisha Paytas managed to do it. She was older and in the porn industry, and she managed to marry Ela Klein's, H3H3's wife, Ela Klein's brother, right? So it is possible, but it makes it really hard. So I don't think he's contributing good to society. He takes money off of these young, impressionable men a lot of times, some older and gullible. He ran campsites to get men addicted to porn, which is also not healthy, not just for the girls doing it, but also for the consumer. What?
What was the name of the campsite he was running? Did you know? Or?
No, I researched for so long trying to find it, and I absolutely could not find the name of it, like, this entire time. I don't know what it is, but he claims to run a campsite, and I mean, all the factors are there. The girls are there, like we see it, but I don't know the site yet. And so he gets men addicted to porn, and then he's like, oh, but I'm helping men. It's like, how are you helping men by getting them addicted to porn and pimping out women, prostituting them on camera, and then taking money from them and flying them to a foreign country where they don't know anyone, and you coerce them by using the lover boy method.
In Romania, where the government is very corrupt, and pretty much he paid off a lot of the government officials there, which is true.
He admitted on camera to working with the Romanian mafia. He said that these are words out of his own mouth. So I know a lot of people get really mad when you mention this for some reason, but it's true. And I'm mentioning things he actually said himself and did. So it's not like, you can literally see in the website archive for the lover boy method. He describes how he makes sure to have sex with them first and mislead them to a relationship and then manipulates them. It's going on camera, talks about it extensively on camera. His brother too, Tristan, talked about how to get virgins and have sex with them and basically dispose of them after. It's very sociopathic. It's not good. And I don't think it's good at all that men are learning from that and saying, oh, this is masculine, this is a good thing. That's not masculinity. That's very immature. It's very much like a little boy who doesn't know what they're doing, and you're never going to have a happy, healthy relationship taking his advice, especially when he is working with the mafia. Literally, they're the reason that most of the trafficking in Europe happens, specifically in Romania. So I don't find him to be a moral person at all, or someone to look up to, or in the fact that he basically runs a pyramid scheme, in my opinion, overlooking the definitions. Some people argue that it's affiliate marketing. I argue it's a pyramid scheme because you're selling the link as opposed to selling the product. So taking money from young boys, like, you don't know how old they are. I saw that video where they're shouting like free a top G, and you can see there's a little boy.
I did see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like literally a little boy in the video. It's like, these are who's learning from it. And you see these articles of these young kids getting told by their teachers about Andrew Tate to stop watching him. And it's really gross to see. And this isn't coming from like the, oh my God, misogynist, feminist point of view. This is actually from a standpoint of, this is immoral and this is not masculine. Masculinity is so much more than fucking bitches. It's not about fucking bitches. It's about learning to be strong. Sure, that's part of it, like going to gym. Sure. Providing. Sure. Could you buy nice cars with that? Of course, but that's not the main message of that. It's about being strong in the way that people can rely on you that matter to you. It's not about being strong in the sense of, oh, I can lift something heavy, or like being rich in terms of providing. I feel like it's a bad interpretation of what masculinity is. It's more about being courageous and being reliable, being that strong rock. So I don't think he really promotes that.
Someone just brought up a really good point here in the comments section. Commie Hunter said, also another good point of masculinity is protect. Yeah, that's true. Protect. That's
and that's a great point. And who is Andrew Tate protecting? Himself and his brother. That's who he's protecting. Is he teaching men how to protect? Not really. He's teaching them how to use women, how to de-virginize them. Like, imagine your daughter meets someone like them, and this guy who's trying to use her for her virginity and then dump her. It's really gross. So I don't think he has any of the good aspects of masculinity. And the shards that he gets of it is a completely bad interpretation of one side of it.
Brittany, if you could be on, let's say, a debate panel with Andrew Tate, what would be the one thing that you would ask him, and like, what would you really criticize on him about? Like, what would you like to say to him, and what would you want to point out to him that he's doing wrong, like out of all the wrongdoings he's done?
It's hard to narrow it down to just one. But I guess what comes to mind is, how is he helping men by teaching them promiscuity and disincentivizing a traditional household of having a mom and dad and having loyal, healthy relationships? How is he actually helping men by teaching them to be degenerates and to be in unhealthy relationships? I don't see how he is helping men. People always say that, but I don't really see it. They never really go into it other than, oh, he says go to the gym. It's like, okay. Like, I think most people could figure that one out.
Oh, I know, it's absolutely. Someone wrote a really good comment here. Keith Ward said, "That would be a sick debate. That would be a great debate to watch." I really actually think, to be honest, Brittany would probably win that debate because I think you've got a lot of facts on your side. But it would be interesting. It'd be a good debate. I also saw on the stream that you did with Ashton Brady, and it also was with Chrissy and Nina. And Ashton said that she had got into contact with some of the people who had been, trafficked or abused by Andrew Tate. What was your opinions on that?
I think that if a guy has a bunch of different girls, basically where there's smoke, there usually is fire. And there seems to be a lot of girls. Like, what's complex about the story is, like, some of the disinformation, for example, is that the couple of girls that spoke out and said they weren't victims. From what I saw from Crowdcrawler One's reporting, it seems like they're not even the girls that were the victims. People are just trying to paint them as that, and then they're coming out as that, but they're not the actual ones listed in the actual court case. So then people are looking to that and being like, oh, look, see, they said they're not victims, but they're not actually the ones. So there's a lot of disinformation about that, I noticed. And in regards to the girl saying that girl that you're talking about with Ashton, she wasn't trafficked in particular, but she says that there was physical abuse. So we would have to see in terms of evidence and things like that. But it is pretty odd that someone would just get accused of this over and over and over and over, especially when you have the circumstance of you're flying in girls to a foreign country that has one of the most trafficking entirety of Europe. The Romanian mafia runs top five reasons for why there's so much trafficking. One of the biggest ones, they're responsible for most of Europe's trafficking. And then he's flying them into this foreign country where they don't know anything. And then he's coercing them by sleeping with them and saying, oh, but now you can work with me. He said that he gives them alcohol, so basically feeding them drugs to make them go on camera and things like that. So I don't think that's, I think that would be behavior of someone who would do things like physically abuse someone. So do I think it's likely? Yeah, I do, honestly, because he doesn't seem to be a very good person. He seems to be pretty immoral and doesn't really care about fucking over people, especially it seems to be women. And men too. It's just men, it's done a little more sneakily by taking their money and telling them how good they are for giving him money. So I think it's possible, but we don't know for sure. I think it's possible that he did that.
So, speaking of the Andrew Tate situation, Brittany, as we all know, we are aware that you're still, not unlocked on Twitter, which is absolutely outrageous, and I think you should have never been censored in the first place. And please, everybody on the comment section, write hashtag free Brittany Venti, bimbo power all the way. When you look at like that situation with Eliza Blue and all the stories that are coming out about her, like what made you first curious about Eliza Blue being a fraud? And like when you look at like all the dodgy things that are coming out about her and like the connections that he has and like Elon Musk, being her friend and like people getting censored on Twitter, whether it's you, whether it's like, Defango, whether it's Coldering, whether it's all the other people who have been also, also not Red X. She's another good YouTuber. She's been on my show before. Shout out to her. She's really good. And all those other people, who have been censored by that thing. When you look at that, and especially, with Tim Pool, not acknowledging it and how he didn't want to bring you on his show, like Cassandra Fairbanks didn't want to, bring you on her show. Where do you think that this is going to end up, going forward? Do you think it's going to end up, justice is going to get done? Or do you think it's going to lead into potentially opening Pandora's box to seeing where more right-wing, fake conservative groups are going to get exposed, especially with the drama with Stephen Crowder and Daily Wire, and not just that, Sydney Watson, Elijah Schaffer. What do you think is this going to be like for the future of the conservative media movement, and how do you see this whole situation ending, in your opinion, Brittany?
It seems like Pandora's box has been open. Everyone and their mom is getting sued. It's all in the same few weeks, too. That's what's odd about it. So with the Eliza thing, it might have to go legal too. I think, well, I'll say this. Mine's reached out to me and we haven't scheduled anything yet, but they invited me to be on. And I know Eliza's going to be there. So there's that to look forward to.
Wow. Are
And
you thinking about going on to debate her?
yeah,
Oh God, that would be, you know. Does anyone else know, or is this the first time you're telling this to someone on a stream?
this is my first time.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first. Brittany, if she decides to go to mine, she could be, you know, debating Eliza Blue. You know, I really think that if you do it, you should definitely go for it, Brittany, because what she's done, you know, especially, you know, lying about being a sex trafficking victim is so disgraceful. Well, I was on one of the Twitter spaces with, I think it was Chrissy was on there and Grifty was on there and Tree of Logic was on there. And there was this one upset girl who was lying, and this one upset girl, not lying, sorry, and she was really upset that Eliza Blue would lie about this. And the fact Eliza Blue's lied about sex trafficking, it's not, you don't lie about that shit. Going through it, being a sex trafficking victim is one of the worst traumatic experiences ever. And you know what, Brittany, when I saw that video of Eliza Blue, I think it was on Michael Malice's show or Hop Step Jesus, she was wearing a crown. It made me think to myself that that lady is so full of shit. She is, honestly.
Yeah, and it oozes out. People catch on to little things like that with like the tiara or like how she wore the power red shoulders. Just little things that give you hints about her personality or what archetype she falls under. I think she's absolutely full of shit. But, you know, surprisingly, there are some people, including some people higher up, that may do certain things, whether that's running shows or running events, that still might buy into what she's saying. So that's what's really, even after the article retraction too, there's still people who side with her on this. And I don't understand on what premise other than her crying. Like, is that the argument we're using? Is her shedding crocodile tears? Does that give someone the right to censor people now because they get to cry? I can cry too, bitch. See who can cry better. Like, but I don't have to resort to her tactics. I have the truth. All the receipts are there. And that's why she's losing. It's because she's not a very honest person.
She's definitely not. And, you know, I think that debate, you know, do you think when you're up in that podium debating her, you know, do you think you're going to expect to get a lot of backlash, Brittany?
Well, at the event, I believe it's Tim Pool is a lot in it. I think Luke's gonna be there and some other people. Like, so maybe from those people, the select individuals who may have some sort of bias to support her, I don't know. Maybe by then some people will change their mind or like come to a more firm position or more vocal about their position. But I think the public opinion is that they see Eliza for what she is, which is a liar and someone who spits in the face of everything she's claimed to advocate for, all the victims she claimed to advocate for. She made it so anytime you say you're a sex trafficking victim, you're going to get eye roll. She's done a huge disservice to the victims who've already gone through a lot. She already screwed over all her fans too. What about the people who donated money to her and supported her? Now they feel stupid too. She, in a way, betrayed them as well, all the people that backed her. So I think the public opinion is against her. But, you know, some people have connections to certain individuals, and that's how they're able to still go to things and still get away with certain things. But I'm not going to just sit here and let it happen to me. My Twitter is still locked, obviously. I don't know if it'll get unlocked. I don't know. Hopefully eventually. But I'm not going to just roll over and die and let it happen, especially when it's affecting my viewers too and my friends and their viewers as well. A lot of our communities overlap. It's not right. And I don't think that she should just be able to get away with that because she cried crocodile tears or something.
No, she shouldn't be getting away with that. And I think the fact that you're going out and calling her out on her fucking bullshit is a good thing. You know, you're just being tough, you know, and the fact she's lying about all this stuff is just pathetic, you know. And I like,
It
honestly,
is.
Brittany, I respect you for doing that. It's really good you're doing that and calling out, because I think that when you look at people like, whether it's Andrew Tate, whether it's Eliza Blue, and a lot of high other figures, it's scary in today's world how there's a lot of, you know, media figures who are so, you know, powerful, so this, but yet they turn out to be frauds. Like, how do you wish Tim Pool should have handled? If you were Tim Pool, how would you have handled this situation better? Like, what do you think he should have done proper, rather than being, you know, like a simp for Eliza Blue, what he was obviously doing?
I think that number one, he shouldn't have canceled my booking, which is kind of suppressing it in the first place. Like, suppressing a story about censorship is pretty ironic and against Tim's branding. That was a terrible decision. Number two, having his booker get involved in drama like this, accusing me of sexual harassment, which is libel.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Yeah, I would not have a booker that does that. They're messing with my brand. I would absolutely fire them. It's just like, no matter who's doing it, it's not even about, oh, Cassandra, like, no matter who's doing that, that's just simply unprofessional, and it conflicts with his branding and actively is going against the messaging and making it harder to stop censorship. Number three, even if he went through with all these things, he could have still corrected his course at some point. But even now, I haven't received a proper apology about the rude things he said about how I don't do any good work, like as if I've done nothing, like completely discrediting me. Not to jerk myself off, but, you know, like the Balenciaga thing was noteworthy. I didn't really get credited properly 100%, but that was something. I've done a lot of work against pornography and trafficking. Speaking on that, I have done some things that aren't just like shit posting, and I felt like he discredited me just on the premise of he was mad and offended that people put a beard on him. And you have to be a little more objective. That was very emotional of him to do. So he could have corrected that. He still could if he wanted to some extent. I mean, it's pretty far gone at this point. But he could have like I said, I haven't received an invitation. He said on air, but he didn't invite me yet to go on Timcast or anything.
What was this about Cassandra saying to you? What was this about Cassandra saying that you were never booked? Because I think that was bullshit what she was saying. What on earth is that about?
She's speaking under technicalities. So what happened was I had two bookings. So they were both under Timcast. One was for Timcast, the actual podcast everyone knows, and he has a second show called Pop Culture, which is hosted by a different host, Morgan, and has a couple of different people. So the first booking, which is for Timcast, she went to book me. She reached out to me on Twitter, and I said, cool. And then suddenly out of nowhere, she backtracked and was like, actually, we're full. So then I find out later in the past couple of weeks on Twitter, Cassandra had been replying to Nina Infinity and Anna, that Star Wars girl, saying like, I stepped back from booking her for a reason, meaning like it was because of her own personal bias, which is also very inappropriate and unprofessional as a booker. But there was that. So that's what happened with the first booking. So that's what she's saying. She was never booked. It's because she backtracked on that one. But after that, so that was before the Eliza Blue thing. She admitted after the fact, like after the Eliza Blue thing, that it was because of personal bias, like saying it was for a reason, and being very passive aggressive about it, saying, yeah, we're full. Like as in like, you know, like a Mean Girls, our lunch table is full kind of thing. And then after the Eliza Blue thing, she accused me of sexually harassing Eliza. And then after that, after I had responded to that, because it's a very serious accusation, especially when it's based on nothing other than her bad faith assumptions of me, I then received an email from Tim Pool saying that I had been unbooked, from Tim Pool himself, saying I'd been unbooked for Pop Culture, his other show, which is on the same site like that the house is in, I believe, with Timcast, because it's the same people, like some of the hosts. And he said, I'm unbooked from that because of the Cassandra incident. It literally said that in the email. I had shown it to Chris Seamer and Anna, that Star Wars girl. And I read it on a different stream, the part that was relevant. So yeah, that's what happened. I got unbooked from both of them.
That's ridiculous, Well, Brittany, so you said, so of course, you said you had about 55 minutes to an hour. I thought we should just finish it up now. So, what is the last thing you would want to say? Would you have anything else you would like to say here?
I look forward to the Minds thing. I think that's going to be pretty funny, especially it's ironic since it's a free speech event type of event. Very ironic. Eliza should be speaking there. And I guess thank you for having me. I'm going to prep for my stream in a second. But I appreciate you having me on and being very flexible with the scheduling. And also, I thank you everyone for supporting me with being locked on Twitter, with the Free Brittany, and holding Eliza accountable. I really do appreciate that. And I wasn't expecting that amount of
Brittany,
support.
would you want to come on? Would you want to come on here again for another stream in the future?
Sure.
No, all right, sounds good. Well, I just want to say to everybody, Brittany, thank you for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. Never give up your fight. Keep going, Brittany, because you're very strong. You're a very, brave fighter. It's so good what you're doing, sticking up against these bullies, Eliza Blue and Tim Pool. You're a very bright young girl, who has a lot going for a very bright future coming up. Never let the haters get to you, girl. You're very strong. And yeah, and everybody, please remember on your Twitter to stand up, never give up, and also free Brittany Venti. Remember to say that, guys. And remember, hail bimbo power, everybody.
Saying hail bimbo power makes it sound like H-Man. It's kind of funny because people call me Brittler.
Oh, God.
But yeah, bimbo power.
Hail bimbo power, everybody. Well, thank you for coming on, Brittany. And I just want to say to everybody, thank you for coming on the Welsh Republic podcast episode 96. It was a pleasure having Brittany Venti. Please go and like and subscribe to her channel. She's one of the best YouTubers out there. She's fantastic. She does a lot of great work. You'll have a lot of good fun, going on to our channel, having a good time. And also, everybody, let's keep fingers crossed. Let's hope that Brittany, debates, Eliza Blue in the Mind Festival. What a debate that's going to be. Let's hope that Brittany, defeats her in the debate. But anybody, thank you everybody for joining the Welsh Republic podcast episode 96. Thank you, Brittany, for coming on. Take care, everybody. God bless you all. And remember to hashtag free Brittany Venti. Bye-bye.